In 1999, Dr. Jacqueline Stone, a professor at Princeton University, wrote a review article on a book edited by Jamie Hubbard and Paul Swanson entitled Pruning the Bodhi Tree, The Storm Over Critical Buddhism. Without getting into the debate regarding this critical Buddhism trend, I wanted to, in particular, point out Dr. Stone's excellent characterization of original enlightenment, which I think is a primary area of study for her. This definition really resonated with me when she said that original enlightenment is not an underlying substrate, nor is it prior to the phenomenal world, nor is it a generative monism giving rise to all things. It is simply phenomena being simultaneously devoid of independent self-existence, in other words, emptiness, yet at the same time arising through dependent origination, or conventional existence. To say that it's a challenge to unpack this definition and understand it in conceptual terms is an understatement. Why? Because our conceptual thinking mind is not capable of understanding in conceptual terms the nature of non-duality. It's a paradox. It's very hard for us to get a handle on the simultaneity of emptiness and conventional existence. But again, making some attempt to unpack this definition, Dr. Stone says all phenomena are simultaneously one, devoid of independent self-existence. So this relates to the interdependence that has been my way of thinking about emptiness, that nothing has a totally independent existence. And yet, she says at the same time, through dependent origination, which is a fundamental dynamic, conventional existence emerges. Or conventional existence, you could say, manifests itself concomitantly with emptiness. So she says both empty and conventionally existent simultaneously. Well, here's an interesting question. Is the human tendency to conceptualize dualistically part of conventional existence? I would say so. Also, are the defilements, the three poisons in Buddhist terms, the greed, the anger, the ignorance, are these not an aspect of conventional existence? I would say so. So it's as a function of the dependent origination dynamic that, if you want to think of the sun of wisdom, cannot shine through in an unobstructed way to allow us to be consistently aware of emptiness or the lack of independent self-existence, and thus we really cannot manifest the attributes of Buddhahood in the context of this existence in human form, or at least it is extremely difficult and very rare for that to occur. We can approach it, we can glimpse it, but to consistently be able to experience, as she says, both empty and conventionally existent simultaneously is, again, to say the least, a great challenge. And she further makes the point, which I agree with 110%, is that what appears to be substantialist language in some Tendai Hongaku texts is a pedagogical device aimed at encouraging a transformative insight achieved through meditative practice. Such an argument has, she says, in fact, been recently advanced by Ruben Habito, who argues that such texts are found to contain, quote, deconstructive disclaimers that obviate the possibility of substantialist interpretations. So this is where, certainly the whole stream of commentary within Zen Buddhism talks about the limitations of words and concepts, and we find references to that same insight of emptiness in the Lotus Sutra, although, as I've said before, it's not emphasized in a way that it is in the Prajnaparamita Sutras. But that we can, from a non-dualistic perspective, simultaneously acknowledge the reality of emptiness, that is, that there is no independent self-existence of any dharmas or phenomena, but at the same time, as Dr. Stone points out, that there is a conventional existence that arises through dependent origination. So, what about this notion that what appears to be substantialist language in some Tendai Hongaku text is not an ontological argument, not an argument as to the nature of being or existence or reality, but pedagogical device, in other words, a teaching device, an education device aimed at encouraging a transformative insight achieved through meditative practice. In other words, isn't this true of all the sutras, all the written, particularly Mahayana sutras, and also the Theravada and Pali canon, is that it's like the raft that the Buddha talked about, or the provisional teachings in the context of the Mahayana or Lotus Sutra, that these teachings are not meant to be the be-all, end-all description of the nature of reality, but rather are to be aids to us to make a movement toward the potential we have for getting a glimpse of this original enlightenment. So taking this framework, we can again, tying it into my own sectarian perspectives and biases, say that I am a limited being with many defilements as a result of the causes and conditions relating to my karmic heritage, but that doesn't negate the fact that I have the Buddha nature and have the potential for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, highest complete enlightenment. But do I think that I can attain that, quote unquote? In other words, that I can consistently, at every moment, be aware of the non-dual perspective that is being described in this definition of original enlightenment? No way can I do that. I can't. Because I do have cravings, I do have reactivity to certain frustrations, I do have an absence of constant insight as would be described by the prajna perspective or wisdom perspective, and I certainly don't have the ability to consistently perform compassionate actions in a way that would be consistent with actually being a Buddha. And again, Shinran does not say we are a Buddha in this life. That's why his framework, his way of wanting us to view ourselves is in the context of attaining that supremely altruistic and idealistic state in our next lifetime, after this lifetime is complete. But within the context of that notion that we are trapped in this cycle of births and deaths, to make the point that we will no longer be in that painful suffering cycle once this lifetime ends, when we are reborn in Amita's Pure Land in accordance with the inconceivable working of Amita's universal primal vow. Namo Amida Butsu.